Welcome back, everybody, to Stuff That Matters Now, and I am in Wellington on this beautiful August morning with Kevin Whitmore. Kia ora, Kevin.
Kia ora, thank you for having me.
Well, I'm doing this very selfishly, Kevin, because you've got a new thing, and I want to find out what this new thing is because I have a funny feeling it could be really useful to people. So, hence the reason when I heard about what you're doing, and I thought this market was well catered for. So I am on a journey of discovery this morning. Kevin, let's kick off. Who are you?
Who am I? If we go back, I grew up in Christchurch. I had a pretty distinctive interest in languages, so studied Japanese at high school. Then went to Chile for a year, learnt Spanish, came back to university, went to Japan for a year, taught English over there, came back to Auckland for a few years, got into the IT space, went back to Japan, got married, went back to Japan, worked for Lehman Brothers, as you do. Got into the, finance technology space. So that's kind of been me for the last probably 20-ish years.
Were you there when it all went tits up?
I was there when it all went tits up, and quite a fascinating experience. So we can maybe save that for another podcast. But essentially I rolled into Singapore, set up a financial technology business there doing expense management for banks, which was a fascinating experience. But probably one I will put on pause for now because working for banks can be somewhat soul-destroying. So I'm now in a similar space, but helping out other businesses, and that's where my passion is. So helping out salt-of-the-earth companies that are doing really amazing things, but didn't get into business for finance. So can get caught out every now and then when things kind of don't go their way. So I've been working for Callahan Innovation for the last 7-8 years, and worked with over 100 companies, mostly in the digital space there, helping them out and just learning. We've got some amazing businesses in this country, and I've blown away really by, it's almost like lifting up a rock and finding this fantastic company and saying, why has nobody ever heard of you before? So that's been really fulfilling, and now jumping back in and helping them with my own business, Cashbucket.
Kevin, I do want to go back to Lehman Brothers. Just give us a snippet of what that was like, please. Yeah,
it was really. I actually had no idea. I got recruited over the phone by an Australian guy, and it was pretty much a few questions on SQL database management. I got hired for a business intelligence role that became a project management role. So I was way new to all of these sorts of things. Very smart people over there. Probably the way it works is we were in Tokyo, which was one of probably the main hubs, but there was also London and New York for Lehman Brothers. And so a lot of the tomfoolery was happening in the New York branch, just in terms of the way that they were managing and hedging their risk, etc. We were kind of more a technology hub, so I just got exposed to some amazing people. And it was quite a wild ride working for an investment bank like that. And on the day it all happened, we sort of grabbed some paraphernalia and headed down to the pub and out the back door, and it was crazy.
It would have been, you were single at the time or married?
Married, yeah.
It would have been pretty, was it scary at all?
Take that back. We were not married at the time, but yes, we were both together in Tokyo at that stage before we got married.
Yep. Was it scary?
No, not really. Scary in what sense? When it all imploded?
Yeah.
No, it was just, again, it was just such a crazy thing that, there was a lot of us. I felt quite fortunate out of that incident, but just because I was more contracting I was a permanent contractor at that stage, so I rolled into the next thing relatively quickly. But yeah, there were some people that came in and they just didn't really know what was going on because they were kind of in this limbo status for a while. And then Nomura bought them out in terms of the Japanese entity at least. So some of them rolled into the next thing. But yeah, it was definitely a strange thing, but it wasn't scary.
Right. So Kevin, what are you? You're into languages, IT, and finance.
Yeah. What am I? I just have, I guess, a lot of passion for solving complex problems. So the languages thing, I think, has exposed me to a whole bunch of different cultures. Just any sort of financial, I guess, tooling mechanism, down that sort of Bitcoin rabbit hole as well. I'm doing a bit of work at the moment for the Bitcoin Policy Institute, which we've set up here recently. So financial technologies, helping people do what they're good at without getting bogged down by, I guess, financial literacy is probably the best thing. Because I just, again, coming back to that point about businesses, I just see some amazing companies getting caught out on technicalities that they're not necessarily in business for, and it might be a timing issue, or it might be a clarity issue, or a opaqueness issue, because they've built this amazing company that's grown, and then suddenly tomorrow it turns out to be a big behemoth that's kind of no longer simple to manage. And so through success, they've kind of stumbled on complexity, if that makes sense. So we're just trying to bring things back to a simple to manage model that people can then make, better decisions around their company and enjoy life a bit better. So that's kind of where I'm at.
And look, it's the irony is on my way to see you this morning, I stopped off having a cup of coffee and bumped into one of our members. And this guy I'm going to introduce you to him. He's got a business that's in an industry that's struggling like hell, and he is doing the complete opposite to everybody else and is expanding, and it's going really well. And I said, how's it going? And he went, cash flow. And thought that they would, as they grew, they'd be able to cash flow, would be okay, and look, it's amazing that he is able to do the opposite to everybody else in Wellington. And he's finding a point of difference, and it's working. But cash flow right now is the thing that I think is consuming his creative mind right now. And I thought, this is the irony is classic.
It's interesting. I think we had the same thing at my previous company in Singapore. I think there were kind of high fives and fist bumps when we got $1 million of cash in the bank account, and we hadn't actually realised we'd carpeted ourselves into a corner to run out of money in 6 months. So there was this almost false sort of false kind of view of success based on sort of a metric, and it turned out that something else we couldn't see or easily see was taking the business down a completely opposite path. So I talk to founders and sort of say, up to $1 million in revenue, things are pretty easy in terms of management from a financial perspective. You can do it in your head, you can do it on a spreadsheet. It's not that hard. When you get to 2 to 3, more staff, chop changing salaries, contracts starting and stopping, and all these different kind of movements, things get quite hard. And we found out the hard way. We created 12 different versions of our financial model, and each time we tried to make it better at handling things. And at the end of the day, I just needed something really simple and clear that took all those movements, if you like, and gave me the bloody answer. I just wanted to know, am I in a good position? Am I going to be in a good position in 6 months? Yes or no? But it's really hard to know when you've got all these bits moving all over the place. So that was the genesis of the current company. but we built it in Microsoft Access back in the day. So that was 2014-ish, and it really helped us. So it was just quite simple. And since coming back and working in Callaghan and with a bunch of companies, a lot of them had sort of reached out and said, we'd like this if you've got a version we can use. So we dusted it off, and that's been Cashbucket.
So, Kevin, before we get into Cashbucket fully, it's interesting the comment you made about lifting up rocks and finding all these wonderful companies. I mean, we do that with collective intelligence. There's stuff. Oh my God, there's cool stuff here. And look, we're coming up to our 100th interview with the podcast in the next week or so. And I think you're 99.
Cool.
Kev, I think.
Do I get
You get nothing.
sticker? Or
Nothing.
No.
All right.
Okay.
Stop being greedy. What's been interesting through that, it made me remember as we're coming up to this celebration, is that this podcast is focused on people that are not famous. And lots of podcasters focus on famous people. The majority of the work in the world, 99.9% of the work in the world, is done by people who aren't famous.
Yeah.
And we're not very good at telling those stories. And I'm not sure if we do it, if it's a New Zealand thing or not, but we have these talking heads in New Zealand. Everybody goes to these talking heads. But, yeah, there's amazing work being done by people not famous.
Yeah, I'll give you an anecdote as well. There was a company we were working with in Nelson, and they were doing amazing things offshore. I won't talk too much about them specifically, but yeah, they'd managed to sell really well, some phenomenal brands, etc. And when I spoke to the CEO and said, "What do you need help with?" he said, "Local connections." He said, "I'm not very well connected into Nelson community, And I think part of that, to your point, is feeling uncomfortable bragging or talking too highly of yourself. I think that's a thing we're not comfortable about as a culture. So, yeah, that was an example of just somebody lifting up that rock and going, "Wow, this is really, really cool. Why don't we know about you?" Well, it turns out that just not comfortable connecting in that way with locals.
Yep. So, Kev, the time at Callaghan, there would have been some key learnings through that.
Yep.
What were the ones that stood out to you?
I think fascinating. We started off, so I joined the what was called the digital sector team. So we mostly worked with software as a service businesses, and I think the first learning was just, again, how phenomenal some of these companies are that are there. But to your point, not necessarily the ones we all are aware of, the ones that sit underneath the radar a little bit. And that came to fruition probably a couple of years ago, just when we saw so many exits, so many buyouts from the likes of Vend, Timely, those sorts of businesses that aren't always household names, but got $100 million plus exits based on what was happening. So, that was probably the first learning, was just that we had a lot of amazing companies here, and they didn't necessarily get a lot of time in the limelight until somebody's made a sale. That would be the other one. Would be lots of businesses that are overnight 10-year successes. So we'd work with quite a few of them, and they'd again struggle with cash flow, but struggle with lots of things, team dynamics, cultural, that sort of thing. To the point that a lot of them, 10 years in, would often sort of say, "Should I continue or should I fold?"
Yep.
And then 2 weeks later, they've just exited for tens of millions of dollars. So it was almost that sort of tenacity and the ability to go a little bit longer and further. So there's a lot of those businesses in New Zealand that I just wasn't aware of. So that's been a big learning.
Would Sir Paul Callaghan have been happy with the work that you guys did?
That's probably a tricky question because I think there'll be aspects yes and aspects no. I mean, productivity is still a massive issue in New Zealand, right? We're not high enough in terms of our output. So I think from that perspective, then the answer is no. I don't think we've kind of achieved what we set out to do, and you can go into the details on that, but there's still a big issue, I think, in New Zealand in terms of productivity and output. And I think part of that as well is we focus on a lot of our investments are into housing and assets and things like that. They lock up a lot of our capital. We do have access to good capital markets, but I think from an investment perspective, it would be nice to see more money flowing into startups, productive businesses, all that sort of stuff. I know when we compare Australia to New Zealand, Australia does obviously have its own housing market and sort of locks up a lot of capital there, but it also isn't as bad as or isn't as high as New Zealand's housing market to that degree. They still do invest in other things. I can't remember what the metrics were, but yeah, the New Zealand is pretty much housing focused.
Yep, and they've got this massive superannuation fund that's been tracking for a long time as well.
Yeah.
What's productivity?
So I guess, productivity in terms of generating businesses or generating output for the economy that's not just static investment into things like housing. So businesses that generate jobs, revenue, employment, but also products and services that people are consuming. So that's my take on it anyway, is product and service generating, revenue generating businesses.
So politicians talk about this productivity thing all the time.
Yep.
What government has done a good job in lifting productivity?
What government? I don't know if there has been one yet, and I think that's still a concern. I think, recently we've had issues with looking into things like capital gains taxes and the impact that would have on a voter base, and therefore pulling back rather than necessarily doing the right thing. And I'm not saying that capital gains tax is necessarily just the way forward, but I think we need to make some better decisions around what we invest into holistically, and that's more of a cultural shift than anything else. So I don't know if it's one government's fault or one government's to solve, but I don't think we've nailed it by any means.
What country has done a good job on this?
Good question. I mean, it's a good question. I think there've been lots of studies into different countries in terms of research and development in the likes of Ireland, Israel, etc. But the country that I have the most familiarity with, that I think productivity-wise is good, is something like Japan. They just seem to have such a strong work ethic in terms of what they do that, for me, looking at their sort of history from the end of the Second World War through to now, their employment levels are high, and what they do and are able to achieve in terms of their construction industries, but right across the board, is quite impressive. I think that comes down to, again, their culture, their diligence, and their ability to work hard. So this was often something that we'd be looking at Callaghan as well, was, New Zealanders talk about the 3 Bs, and the batch, the BMW, and the boat, and we were often trying to find founders that had that ambition to go beyond that. So it wasn't just a matter of comfort and building a business that was okay and got them to a zone, and nobody begrudges anybody for doing that, but from a country and an economic perspective, what are the ones that are going to really shift the needle? Who has that ambition? Who has that coachability? And where could we add value were the three things that we would kind of look at. And so, those businesses that would track highly in all three, we'd try and work as hard as we could with them to get them ahead. The ones that would sort of tick two of the three would be sort of that medium level interaction, and those that didn't exhibit those other traits would kind of have on a more of a low interaction basis.
What are the countries that really stood out? What are the companies that really stood out for you at your time with Callaghan?
Good question. This is going to be a little bit different to probably what you're expecting, but the ones that I remember the most are the ones that I had a really close relationship with as founders. So what I mean by that is often you'd walk up to somebody and you'd meet them for the first time and you'd ask them how things are going. And often they would say, it's all great. And you'd see this wall sort of in front of you that you were confronting. And usually what I'd say at that point is, oh, well, that's good. When I was at your stage, I had this problem. And you just see that wall kind of come down as they understood that you understood their context. You could start to connect a lot better with them. And then we'd talk about all the challenges and what help they needed and all those sorts of things. So my biggest memories are working with those founders that were probably sort of, I guess, at a scale-up stage or sort of just slightly beyond startup stage, that were experiencing those growing pains, and being able to help them really resonated with me. So it was more my interaction with them, I think, was probably the thing that stuck that stuck in my mind the most, rather than maybe one company particular.
And I like that response more than a specific, Kevin, because in our work with collective knowledge, we find the same thing. People that have this facade, you can't do much with them.
Yeah,
they've got to be able to take it down.
And that's. And I understand that with them, though, as you often, as a founder or a CEO, you have to build up sometimes a defensive persona because you're being challenged on so many things that unless you can kind of show some level of strength and conviction, people are going to start questioning, well, not just your authority, but, are we going down the right path and all those sorts of things. So I get it.
Yep.
But there's also a special talent in being able to open up when somebody that is giving you help at a different level, that isn't part of your organisation, that isn't challenging you politically. If you can open up and accept help in that instance, then that's usually goes a long way as well.
Okay, so coming back to what we're supposed to be talking about, tell me, what does Cashbucket do that nobody else does?
Yeah, so I think as we were talking about before, the challenge I faced originally with our business was the complexity. So things initially went really well, relatively easy to manage the burn rate for the company in my head. So by burn rate, I mean, the how much was coming into the company versus how much was going out, what sort of expenses we had. I could sort of tally up the salaries in my head and do all that sort of stuff.
And what was your company doing?
So it was doing expense management for banks. So what that means is we had a team of accountants that would do reconciliation work for a bank, and we would manage one of their cost centers like market data. Market data is things like all their Bloomberg terminals and all the trading technology and infrastructure that they use. And this would typically be over $100 million worth of cost. So we would have people that would take all of the invoices and distribute it across all of the bank to make sure that they paid for it correctly. So we were doing well. We grew.
Hang on. You founded this company?
I co-founded it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And You co-founded it because you saw a problem?
Yeah, we saw a problem. We saw multiple problems. So we actually had three parts of the company, three parts of the business. So we had a consulting wing, we had a managed service where we did this reconciliation work, and we had a software division as well. So there were multiple kind of opportunities to help banks to solve some of their problems. It's quite fascinating that sometimes people assume that banks do a really good job of their own expense management, and they don't.
I was just admiring the smile on your face, and Kevin, when you were saying that.
I was trying to think of a nice way to say it.
Okay, so you saw the problem, and you were in Japan then?
Yes,
Yep.
in Japan.
Yep, and these were for banks across the world, or
Globally. Yeah, but a lot of them are maybe not headquartered, but Asian bases, either usually in Singapore or Hong Kong. We worked out of Singapore, but global banks.
Right, and and so then the business, you can do everything in your head for a while.
For a while.
And then the growth and the spread of stuff you're doing, and all of a sudden it gets tricky.
Yeah, and I think this will start to answer your question as to why was there a gap for Cashbucket. Not every business grows rapidly, so that's one aspect. Not every business has complex revenue streams, and by that I mean sometimes they just sell one product.
Yep.
Sometimes they have multiple products, multiple different types of products, sometimes services, mixtures, etc. So the situation we found ourselves in was we were growing pretty fast, but we also had lots of different revenue streams. Some of them were for software products, some of them were for consultants, some of them started today and finished in 6 months, some of them were ongoing, etc. So some of them were easy to manage and some of them weren't. And it just ended up creating quite a bit of opaqueness in the company. And as I mentioned, even though we had a bunch of cash in the bank, we'd actually committed ourselves based on the projects that we'd taken on to run out of cash in 6 months. So we didn't have a method for easily seeing all that, and I got to the point where all I wanted was a very simple, almost spreadsheet of ins and outs for the company. I wanted all this complexity, and I just wanted to boil it down to what's coming in, what's going out, and how much money will I have today versus in 6 months.
These different revenue streams, were they interconnected?
Some of them were, some of them weren't. So often, the same customer with different products and services, etc.
Yep.
But sometimes they were completely unrelated.
Yep. And so I'm just trying to picture in my own head. You've been doing this piece of work, and it finishes on July.
Yep.
You're in May.
Yep.
And so you see that revenue coming in, go, okay, that's cool.
Yep.
And then you've got this, and you've got, I'm seeing all these different layers
Yep.
of stuff, some starting and stopping, and you get those, and your outwards were consistent? Were they stable? What was going out?
They were relatively consistent. They'd change a little bit. But it was often the revenue that was kind of the
Lumpy.
complex, lumpy bit.
Yeah.
And that's what we talk about as lumpiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody likes that fucking surprise, do they?
No, they don't like the surprise, but they also, spreadsheets aren't designed for managing all of this lumpiness, right? They don't do a very good job. There's quite a few tools out there that are really good at doing the prediction based on if you're a single product company or if you don't have a lot of complexity in the business and your next 12 months looks similar to your last 12 months, they can do a really good job of sucking all your information out of zero and doing the prediction for the next 12 months.
Yep.
But if your next 12 months looks like completely different, they're not very good at doing that. And that's the sort of situation we found ourselves in, was we had a model that just, it wasn't the same. It kept changing.
We're working with a company right now. Yeah. This is why it's resonating. They've been through hell.
Yeah.
And the business is going okay. The business is going okay. But they ran out of cash for 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was a call on shareholders.
Yeah. And doesn't that suck that you've got one of these amazing companies that shouldn't run out of money, but there might have just been a timing issue, or there could have been a seasonality impact.
There was some stuff. There was some stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's a tough environment, tough economic environment, and you lose your customer and you're waiting for the new customer to come in.
Yep.
And there's this hole.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we've just helped a business recently as well, that exact same thing. During better economic times, that sale would have gone through immediately. So now they need more time to convert this current sale, but they've run out of time. And you can't force something that's not going to happen. So they've had to make changes to their expense lines and downsize. But being able to see that and be honest about it without going insolvent can be quite a challenge sometimes for people.
Or going through these dreadful restructuring,
Yep.
which is not as hard, but it's hard for the people that are left as well.
Absolutely. And it has a big impact on culture and things like
Yeah,
that.
okay.
So this is, again, I lost 10 staff, was it roughly 10 staff when we had to downsize at one point, and I just vowed never again. It was so painful that this is why we do what we do at the moment, is to help other businesses avoid the worst of this.
Look, I'm thinking of more and more companies as we're talking.
Well, there's not a single company that doesn't eventually hit some form of road.
Just recently, and some of them are big companies. You know, some of them are big companies that, with strong balance sheets,
Yep.
that got really wobbly because of this complexity, because of this uncertain time.
Yep.
So what do you guys do that's different?
So initially we released this just as the product, which we used ourselves, and we found that it was okay, but I think people, because this is a complex issue, people wanted a bit more of a hand-holding experience to be taken through, and it's not just using a tool, it's thinking through, how do we manage this situation better? How do we make better decisions? How do we go through these kind of uncomfortable processes? So we combine the product with a service, and that service means that you've got somebody helping you with your performance each month, assessing whether you need to make any changes, or just generally having a chat about challenges within the company. So it's almost leveraging a little bit about what I did with Callaghan, and moving that into a financial decision and modelling process. Ultimately, what we're trying to do with Cashbucket is, once you have your model, you're then able to ask it questions. So what I mean by that is, what happens if I hire another person? What if I lose my biggest customer? What if I try and raise capital? And you should be able to see within Cashbucket the impact on your company if you make that decision. So we're there to kind of help them make those tough decisions. Some of them easy, some of them tough.
Does that roll through to balance sheet?
It doesn't roll through to balance sheet, no. This is purely cash-based operational finances. So our biggest customer is mostly the CEO, the founder, people doing the operations, COO, or the CFO. So it's using the finances as a tool to make business decisions.
Yep. So it's a dynamic tool. So is there a company too large to need this?
We've actually had chats with the big four accounting firms that have said that they would use this as well, because they'll work with a lot of large companies up to sort of 50 million that are still on Xero, that are still doing some of these processes. So we haven't found one yet. I imagine there could be, but everybody needs to make better.
So this can work alongside Xero.
Yeah, so we basically, so if you think of Xero as the tool that nails the accounting and all the historical information, we're the ones that nail the forecasting in the future.
The future. Got it. Interesting, eh? Every bloody product. So I was thinking back to my farming days. You know, people would come out with different, there was a thing called computer concepts or something in the farming thing. Brilliant at certain stuff. Unbelievably bad at some really basic stuff leading into that. And it was just like there was this great void of nothingness. And so going back to the farming days, you'd start off with, you'd have to do your feed budgets first because, you know, they determine everything. And you'd have to run all of that. And then your stock reconciliations and your policies and run all of that before you could go even touch computer concepts, and which was all the financial thing. And their reconciliation program within that was just, it was junk. So you didn't use it. And so you're manually putting stuff into this otherwise pretty good system. I'm not sure if it's still going now, but it was just amazing that. So, and this was all forward planning stuff. This was all critical stuff that took deep knowledge of the real world.
100%. Yeah, it's the messy stuff, right?
And that's what you're talking about, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So the stuff that you automate, the low-hanging fruit has been done. And, you know, so from accounting systems to also simple businesses and cash flow and things like that, it's when things get hairy and complicated and messy and human and all those sorts of things that people have tended to stray away from dealing with those sorts of things. So that's where we step in. That's fun.
Which bit?
The human aspect of solving it. Because I think I come back to, there's so many good businesses out there, and to see them fold because they're not timing something right, and this is what I felt as well, was I didn't get into business to have to deal with all these numbers and different timings and things like that. So for us to be able to help somebody and get them back to what they enjoy doing is quite fulfilling. And to see that they didn't fold or go under based on some timing or technicality is very fulfilling.
But even it's less dramatic than that, Kevin, because, you know, I've seen CEOs just weighed down by this unexpected timing thing that makes a difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars this month. And it looks like it might be next month too.
I heard a quote on Twitter today. Somebody was talking about burnout and saying something like, burnout isn't just working too hard, it's working on things that are meaningless or just completely destroy you. And so for me, that was HR. I hated HR. Like, it was just dealing with, you know, toxicity and kind of problems within the company too much. But for other people, that's the finance bit that will really weigh them down when that's not when they wanted to get into business. So again, that's somewhere we can help.
Okay, so and then, but you also, this is not just selling people an IT tool.
No, it's kind of, I wouldn't say getting into bed together, but it is getting into understanding their situation a lot better. So part of what we do sometimes is actually now start off with a strategy session. So we'll actually get to understand the business back to front, so that we can we can really help them orient into the direction they want to go. So yeah, it's not just a tool; it's working together to help solve some of those messy human problems as well.
Who's your ideal customer?
So probably roughly between 11 to 50 staff. So we're kind of getting into that sort of growth mode process. Not too early, because again, we've talked about mostly smaller businesses can get away with simpler things. Professional services, so again, that lumpiness, that timing around complexity in terms of contracts. But we've also worked with construction businesses and the likes. But professional services tend to be sort of our sweet spot at the moment. So yeah, any business with complexity in it that they want help with. And
when you say we, who's we?
There's how many of us? Probably about 6 of us now. We have a couple of extra consultants that we bring on every now and then. But yeah, I have co-founders in Singapore and Japan. And yeah, we're just a remote team of people that enjoy working together. And my dad's actually helping us as well. He's part of the back-end development of the product. So he's based in Christchurch. So
he's your techie.
He has been our back-end techie, and we also have 2 other back-end techies as well. But it's been good to get his experience on this as well, because he's seen quite a few businesses with this sort of situation as well.
Like Kevin, I was looking forward to this conversation today, but it's funny. I understand it more than I thought I was going to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it is, when I go back to my farming days, I can see this integration stuff of projecting out into the future that nobody had really put any time or effort into that.
Yep.
And farming's not as complex as a lot of other companies. You know, it's farmers will be listening to that and going, no, we're really complex. Not really. There's not as many moving parts. Yes, you've got the weather and stuff like that, but they all still work within a certain parameter. Yeah.
Well, I think it's, to your point as well, it's about that rainy day kind of preparation. So that's pretty much any business. But we had one recently as well where most people tend to react or try and deal with an issue after it happens. So if you're low on cash, they sort of run around and go, how do I solve this? I need to find more money. I need to do X, Y, and Z. We actually got that company recently into a point where they could see 6 months into the future. I've now got enough cash in the company. 6 months in the future, I'm going to run into this problem. And they were dealing with a problem in the future that hadn't happened yet. And it was the first time that they were dealing with that, as opposed to reacting to something and not sleeping well at night and all that sort of stuff. So that's why we're here to do what we do, is being able to see somebody adjust that way was really good.
And the way banks respond to that is vastly different.
Yes.
You know, because it just shows competency, doesn't it? And it's when you're going, oh, I'm out of cash. Well, this wasn't projected.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah. The other thing is that I've seen some companies become so conservative or so risk adverse that they're not extending themselves because of fear of running out of cash.
Agreed.
And that can be really damaging as well.
Yep, totally. And I think that's also where some of the strategy work comes in as well, because you can quite see that often within a company there'll be different risk profiles between founders or directors or shareholders, etc., that often sometimes work well and sometimes conflict.
Yeah.
So being able to work through that is good. But yeah, to your point as well, I think that's where once you've got your sort of model lined up, then you can actually go, right, well, we've got this amount of cash. How are we going to spend it in a way that's either drives research and development or as a new product features, etc., in a responsible way rather than just an opaque way. We also talk about some companies where they build a solution without a problem, and that tends to be quite a typical scenario with when you've got a software team, especially, is often they'll be creating features for themselves as opposed for their customers. So being able to identify, this is an actual problem that we are going to address is really, really important.
Which is where your experience comes, is important, that this came from some pain in the past, right?
Yep. Makes
a difference. Kevin, so how do people find you?
We have a website, is usually the best place. So it's getcashbucket.com. And otherwise we are on email, so kev@getcashbucket.com. So that's probably the best place for us to have a chat, and come and have a chat.
And the affordability thing, what's that look like?
We work with businesses at their stage, and I think that's probably quite appealing for businesses that are, still needing a little bit of help or doing a cap raise and haven't yet got the capital in, etc., as we'll find sort of a way to work together that is works with the company but also protective of the right amount of commitment and money and all those sorts of things, because that's the last thing we want. Is we don't want our service to then make more stress for people. So
what if they don't have a strategy?
If they don't have a strategy, it's pretty hard to move ahead with too many things. You're kind of, again, I think knee-jerk reaction is probably what you're doing at the moment. So we definitely encourage people to have a strategy. Doesn't mean that you have to pay a lot of money to build one. You can do it yourself. There's some good frameworks out there. So again, that tends to be what we would suggest, is if you want us to help you, we can do that. If you want to go away and do it yourself.
So you could help them with a strategy.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
Or if they want to do it themselves, then we would go out and recommend a way to do it. What we just find, or what I've noticed during my time at Callaghan, was having a third party come in and run something took all the politics out of companies.
People behave better.
People behave better, but often there'll be a deadlock on something, and just having that third party come in and go, I think it's, you might want to consider this, helps move the business forward quite considerably. Otherwise, the politics sort of tend to come into things, and people dig their heels in and all that sort of stuff. But when you've got a third party that actually doesn't have any sort of status within the company, it tends to make it a lot more neutral.
Kevin, mindful of time.
Okay.
And what have we missed?
What have we missed? Maybe a little bit of, I guess, the CQ overlap for me. Because you and I have been talking a little bit about that recently. How long have I been in CQ now? I think it's
too long. You'd be maybe 2.5 years. Is it 3 years?
Yeah, probably coming up to 3 years now.
Yep.
Yeah, so not too long. I've had 2 different teams, which has been really, really good. I think maybe comparing some of that CQ stuff to what I've been seeing as well with other businesses in Callaghan has been interesting. But that deep level of connection, I think, in both Callaghan and CQ, I found to be really, really important. And what I mean by that is, even with some of the businesses that I worked with at a professional level in Callaghan, the businesses that trusted me the most, or we could actually delve into a really deep level, were the ones that I had a beer with at a pub, played golf with, or whatever, and we'd kind of gone to that personal level. And to be able to do that meant we could delve into a lot more trust-based, I guess, progress, versus when it's just purely professional and you're doing things in an office, it was much harder to connect and actually understand what they were saying. And I think that's been fascinating to sort of see, I guess, my growth in the CQ side, along with sort of the Callaghan side as well, was, that depth of personal kind of interaction I found was really, really important. Just thought I'd share that.
Look, let's go there. The world moves at the speed of trust. And there's been some wonderful examples. And for instance, after this, now I understand it more. I can think of 3-4 people straight away I want to put you in contact with.
Mm-hmm.
And it will be a phone call to them and going, there's a guy, Kevin Whitmore, he's got this thing, you should have a look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And they will. Because they know I'm not going to call them unless I think it's good. Now, I'm no financial whiz, whatever, but they go, okay, cool. And that's because of that deep connection. That the last thing I want to do is waste their time or suggest something I don't believe in. And it's funny, I listen to you today and I get the, I've got it more than I thought I was going to. And I love the fact that it's come out of this pain that you went through and go, you know what it's like.
And I've actually been quite upfront with people and said, when we first built this, I said, look, I'm not here to waste my time and their time either. If people find this useful and we can actually make a dent and really help some businesses that need it, I'm around for that. If we're trying to shovel it down their throats and it's not correct, it's just I'll move on to something else, right? So for me, this is quite personal, and it comes from that problem that I faced, and being able to create a solution for that, but also that connection with people and being able to see them light up when they've actually been able to solve some of these problems that have been pissing them off for ages.
Look, I love that, and I love the thing about this personal and professional thing, because I don't trust people who it's just professional. And I think not doing that doesn't make you unprofessional. Being personal is not unprofessional at all. So I'm all about that.
Wearing your heart on your sleeve and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, because we're human beings. Look, we've celebrating today. We're launching our first team since COVID times. And it's just sheer delight that we've got a bunch of new people coming together for the first time, and saying to them, this is not about like-minded, it's about like-hearted. And there's a big difference. And I believe in the future of Aotearoa New Zealand, and we need to lift our game in so many ways. And I can see this absolutely helping and lifting our game.
Cool. Awesome.
Kevin, thank you.
Thank you for coming to my house. This has been a massive privilege.
Well, it's just the team gave me some feedback, going make the podcast shorter, more succinct, and so I think we've achieved that today. And we'll put a link onto your website and stuff in this. And thanks for your work, Kevin, and good luck.
Thank you. Cheers for all your collective intelligence work as well. I know it's been tough yakka the last couple of years, and it's good to start seeing a new team come out and all that sort of stuff. So.
Look, we the work we're doing with ChemCare, with the impact teams is working. The workplace teams are working. And there's lots of green shoots and coming away. And, I'm just, be nice for this economy to turn around at some stage.
We're working on it.
Cool. Kevin Whitmore, thank you very much.
Thanks, Al.